All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akrit. I run a company called Haptic. Today, I'm not going to talk at all actually about Haptic. We're mostly going to talk about this topic, going mobile first from India. Uh, I used to be part of a company called Flurry before I started Haptic, so I've had my decent share of looking at mobile apps, both Indian and global. And these are just some of those learnings from there. Now, obviously, if you think about mobile first from India, we could probably talk about this for 3 hours, but Suresh has given me only 20 minutes. That includes a Q&A. So some of this might not flow right and might be abstract, but like with the previous session, I'll be around for a while, and this is something I like talking about as well as like writing about. So going mobile first from India. So the first thing, I mean, this might be very obvious to a lot of people. It was obvious to me for a while until I actually got into this, is that, what is mobile first, or what does mobile first actually mean? This is the best definition I've found. So I run a mobile first company right now. I've been in mobile before for the past 5-6 years. So designing an online experience for mobile before designing it for the desktop, web, or any other device. This could be a mobile website, it could be a mobile app, but the first thing you're doing is developing or designing that product for your mobile phone or a smartphone before touching any other device. So we actually are a mobile-only company. All I have on desktop is actually a desktop landing page. And even that desktop, if you access it from a mobile website, it redirects you to the App Store. So we actually don't care about the web world in that sense at all. The most important part is it's not necessarily only a business strategy or what I want to build, like a mobile app or mobile web. It's also a way of designing and writing code, right? Which is everything bottom up from how I think about building my product completely is different, completely changes from how the web world used to be 5 or 10 years back. And the best thing I like about it is people still talk about responsive design, which is, hey, I just built my website. It's responsive that it works on mobile. We're spinning it around now, right? We build mobile first and make it responsive that works on desktop, because that's pretty much where most of the world is moving towards. I love this part, right? So this is actually, honestly, I stole this from somebody else, Satyajit Singh, who talks a lot about this topic. But this is the best way to talk about what mobile first design actually means. The top half is what I think, people will be embarrassed to admit it, but they still do it, right? Is, let's make something on the desktop and let's now gradually bring it down to a 4-inch screen. And it's a great term. It's called graceful degradation of your product. Not only will the mobile app or mobile website continue to be terrible, right? But you're basically degrading your desktop product for what it might mean. Whereas what mobile first design is what we refer to as below, right? You're building it for your 4-inch device. You're building an app or a mobile website. Now, if your business requires that, hey, I need to be on the desktop too, then let's take that and transform that to the desktop and see how that works out. So for us, for example, we have a mobile app, nothing else, but we realize that a lot of the stuff that we solve, people tend to search for. People go to the browser and search for. So then we took the mobile app and made it into a mobile website first. And then 6 months later, we realized, hey, look, now we're a big company, sort of. Let's now make a desktop website out of it. So our desktop website actually just got launched last month, and the company's been around for 14 months because we really didn't care about what happens over there. So a classic example of this is what Zomato did recently. I don't know how many of you are users of Zomato or follow what they do typically. But Zomato did that for the first 5 years, which is they built the desktop site, and then they're like, hey, look, now everyone is accessing listings on my mobile app, so I need to build a mobile app. So they went that way. About 6 months back, I don't remember the time frame roughly, but they went the other way around, which is they're like, all right, let's scrap everything we're doing right now, and let's first build a mobile app. So they built this thing first. So build the mobile app first, saying that, hey, look, now most of my users are on mobile, that's where my primary audience is. So they built this, and then they said, okay, look, we have a decent enough audience on the desktop as well, so let's move this over here. And that's basically how the entire redesign of Zomato took place. This was, I think, earlier this year or last year, I don't remember exactly when. So that was mobile first. Now let's talk about the from India part. right? So Ravi said, hey, you need to talk about how are you building a product from India? So we're a global company. My co-founder is based in San Francisco. So the whole thing, hey, how are you building this? So there's two parts to this, right? One is for India, right? So I'm building a mobile-first product like Zomato, for example, which is for the Indian market. How does that work? What does that mean? Big enough market, I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing numbers about how big the mobile market is, but 200 million smartphones, growing at about 5 million a month, and multiple success stories, right? A lot of success stories of people building out great mobile apps. Every company that was building on web is now pretty much what you call a mobile company. So this is doable, happening, very good. The second piece, right, which is, hey, let me build a listings app sitting over here for America, right? That is something that personally I have only seen maybe a handful of successful, and that also by successful I mean, reasonably got like 1 million downloads, which is not really big success, right? So whatever I have seen, whatever we have seen with Haptik and everything else, is that the second part, if you're building a mobile app for the global audience, wherever your audience is, you need to go and sit over there. I think, especially if it's consumer, you just cannot, stay over here and think about building out the next Zomato for America sitting in India. So very few success stories because people are doing it and it's not quite working out. So the people who I have seen who have done it well have taken the approach that, hey, look, we did a good India pilot. Now we're going to go over there and do it again for the US or for any other Western market for that matter. So the from India is two parts. Now, mostly I think for the remaining few minutes, I'll talk about the for India part and how that's worked. So this was India 12 months back, actually. This is TV ads from 3 of the biggest online commerce companies in India, right? So Flipkart.com, Snapdeal.com, OLX.com. Hey, go to OLX.in, sorry. So go to Flipkart.com and buy stuff. Go to Snapdeal, buy stuff. Go to OLX.in, buy stuff. Right? This was what you saw on TV ads every single day 12 months back. What do we see now in TV ads like today? Download my app. It becomes a cell phone instead of a website or whatever. Download my Snapdeal app. It's so funny. I was watching during the Soccer World Cup, right? I'm a huge soccer fan. I actually sat down with a notepad and counted out out of how many ads, how many were for technology, how many were for app, and how many for rest of the world, which is, the world that exists beyond NASCOM, let's put it that way. So, and what I found was 50% of the ads, maybe it was Soccer World Cup, I was the right audience, 50% of ads were for mobile apps. Download the Flipkart mobile app, download the Snapdeal mobile app, download the OLX mobile app, whatever, the Hike mobile app, right? It was all mobile app, not even talking about, hey, go on Flipkart.com on mobile. It was all stuff like this. So pretty much every company, and the Zomato example holds again, every company that was thinking about, hey, look, what's web and how do we do web, is pretty much only now a mobile company. And if you talk to the people over there, they'll say the same thing. One question that I get pretty frequently, and what we used to get before as well, is that, hey, look, I want to do something on mobile. Do I do mobile web or build a website which is optimized for mobile? Or do I go build a mobile app? And I used to be in consulting in my previous life, and I love this answer. It depends. But actually, honestly, it does. I mean, it literally totally depends upon the product. I'll try and dig into few factors of what it depends upon or what depends. So one of them, so let's talk about the app piece, right? So now app means that you actually need a user to think about the number of steps. Click on the Google Play Store, search for the app, click on the app, click on download, open the app. That is 5 or maybe 6 steps that you require a user to perform to have your app being used. So for that to happen, he needs to see some real value in that app, right? Which means it needs to be a frequent use case. It needs to be something I am going to be using at least a couple of times a week, if not more. Only then do you warrant space. And now with the low-cost Android phones, the other problem that we're facing is memory. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to download this app because I'm full on my phone. This was not a case 2 or 3 years back where people were downloading apps, but now they have so many apps on their phone that they say, hey, I'm not going to get one more unless it like transforms my life because there's such less memory I have. This is something that I very strongly feel about, is that even if, let's say, a Flipkart or an e-commerce site, you're building a mobile app, make sure to use whatever OS functionality that's available. So an example of that would be push notifications, right? Which is, the moment I place an order, I should get a notification on the Flipkart mobile app saying, hey, order is placed, click over here to track it. I don't get it right now, but I would love to, right? Similarly, location sharing, for example. If you're using the OLX app, they ask for your location, so that they exactly can then point you to the specific city instead of you trying to search it yourself. So again, the web versus app debate, if whatever product you have, whatever use case you have, if that ultimately can use some real core power of mobile really well, I think it makes a lot more sense. So this is a little vague, but typically what I've seen is that if you're doing some kind of content, which is if it's like video, listings, anything along the lines of what is typically searchable through the web, right? Which is I typically go to Google and search for it, right? In that, the usual recommendation is build a mobile website first, because if your content or whatever you're building is going to be found through Google, then Google is not going to link that to your app. Google is going to link that to your mobile website. So you need to get that traffic up there first before ultimately transforming or translating that to an app. And this is my favorite one, right? Which is basically, unlike the web where I could possibly access 100 websites in a day, we all talk about in the industry, right? That on the app, on the phone, you literally only have 16 or 20 slots, which is your home screen. If the app is not there, then you're pretty much dead, right? I mean, you can be in a second screen, you might use a little bit, but that first home screen is where the biggest real estate is what ultimately everyone wants to capture. And if you feel that whatever you're building cannot get there, then rethink. I mean, there might be different ways to get your mobile product actually out there. Some of the few challenges that we think that people face doing a mobile first strategy versus, let's say, building a desktop website, right? So distribution, obviously, I mean, I think we're way past the stage of saying, hey, distribution is a challenge. We all know that getting your app out there is a challenge, but the reason why that's such a big challenge is because that's actually downloading software versus clicking on a link, right? Pretty much all website discovery happens through Google search. I find a link, I click on it, I get whatever I want, I go away, right? But here, again, the same challenge of the 6 different steps to ultimately go download the app and use it. So it's like, it's like downloading software. I mean, think of it on the desktop, think about how many software programs do you actually have and you actually use. Not many, right? It takes a lot to ultimately download software. Engagement. So I think the problem over here is free. We've all gotten used to the fact that apps need to be free now. I wish that were different, because as an app developer, I wish I could charge and all of you would pay me 99 cents for downloading my app, but that's not going to happen. I've gotten used to the free app mentality for a reason that, whatever, now that's a different topic. Now, because the apps are free, I've downloaded it, I'm not that vested into it. I haven't invested any money, I'm not that, I've downloaded it, it's fine, which means that for me to delete it is even easier. Something very funny that someone told me once, that I think across all product, all industry, let's think about offline, online, everything. Deleting an app is the easiest way to get rid of a product across anything. If I want to throw this t-shirt away, I'll throw it, it'll still be for a day or two in my trash can. And then ultimately someone will take it and throw it out. With an app, it takes like one click, boom, delete. Right? So that, a lot of people, I think, at least I feel we understand that after doing this for so long, but miss that part where it really has to solve a big problem, and otherwise deleting is, I do it that way, right? I download like at least 10 apps a week and delete 6, right? So the engagement piece is something that we see on a daily basis is getting increasingly harder actually. And the third one, which is very different again compared to, let's say, a web first strategy or anything else, is the update cycles. So again, this might be a little more technical, but on the website, basically I can launch, it's an open web, right? I can launch a feature, build a feature, develop a feature every day. Versus on mobile, what we refer to as walled gardens, right? We have walled gardens of the Google Play Store, iOS App Store. Fair enough, on the Google Play Store, the app is updated and is available the same day, but even then, you have to plan stuff around a feature update. And trust me, as a mobile first organization, our entire company runs down updates. Like marketing depends upon when the new update is going out. Business development depends on when the new update is going out. When I travel depends on when the new update is going out. So a lot of that ultimately comes into the next update cycle and how you're planning for that. So perfect. We have 4.5 minutes left for Q&A. But basically, this is probably very obvious. You're like, yeah, this is fine. We all know that. But for me, at least, I've found it more true to be on mobile than anything else. Is that everything that we do, what is the least number of clicks that it takes a person to ultimately get there, right? Because attention spans are so low, lowest ever, I think, in our world today. The screen is about 4 or 6 inches, right? So how can I build something that is absolutely simple? Something I write about a lot personally is that, building a mobile app or a mobile web, whatever you want to do, just do one thing. I mean, if you cram like 4 or 5 things in there, which we used to do on the web, it's fundamentally not going to work. Cool. Thank you. We have about 4 minutes for Q&A. Yeah.
So one of the challenges we face with mobile apps is the connectivity issue, because in desktop web-based apps we could assume connectivity. Right. Whereas mobile apps, you have this concept of a low bandwidth, low connectivity, wherein you might want to work with a version which works at a low bandwidth.
Sure.
Or offline mode. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, did you face any challenges in mobile first? Because when you're designing for mobile first, you have to think of where the user is. He could be moving and the coverage could be bad. So
that's a great question. So my phone actually is always only on edge. I turn 3G off because that's how I can test if my app is working or not, right? So exactly what you said. So this is a real problem, real challenge. So in the initial days, we're like, some things aren't working, and people kept complaining about, so our app is a messaging app. People kept complaining about messages not going through, messages not coming through. So now both of us, both founders, we only use our phone on edge and make sure Haptik is working on edge. So I think you have to go down, it's a real challenge, big challenge, and ultimately that's sort of one of the examples I give, that building mobile first, right? Like you said, you have to understand where the user is, and you have to understand what the pain points might be. So the only way you can do that is if you actually yourself experience it, right? So at least for us, the best way to tackle that is actually now almost the entire company, when they're using the app, they're always on edge. As long as it works on edge, I know it'll work on 3G and Wi-Fi and everything else. Yeah.
So, as you said, the apps are free nowadays. The apps are free, right? And
sorry, apps are free, right?
Most of the apps are free. Nobody loves to pay for it. And the moment somebody sees a particular app getting a lot of downloads, there are clones of it the next day or next week.
You mean Flappy Bird?
Right. So how do you monetize then? How do you earn? From where do you earn?
Well, of course, we could go in. That's another separate topic. We can talk about offline. It's a big topic, but there's various ways, right? So there's advertising. There is people buying stuff from within the app. In-app purchases, what we refer to typically. So there's about 3 or 4 different things. I think it'll be a long answer, so we can definitely talk about it offline. There's.
Me first.
Right. Right.
one of the ideas that we are toying with, because we went with the mobile first strategy, is to absolutely expand the same screen and just show it within a web browser.
Right.
Have a mobile frame around it. So they are browsing it on a desktop, but still the features are the same, the look and feel is still the same. What do you think about that?
It depends. So, no, honestly, it depends on the product, right? So if you think that by just expanding what you're doing on mobile will ultimately give the same experience on desktop, I think, so for Zomato it works because it's listings, right? So for them, taking the search bar, making it just a little bigger, that's all that ultimately the app, whether it's mobile or web, is supposed to do. So I think it depends in the case of what you're building. I think if it's something, so for example, I'm a messaging app. I couldn't do that, right? Because messaging means I have to build a different messaging client on the web. Think about how, all the connectivity issues I might face on the web. So I think it depends a lot upon the product, though I do know a lot of companies, like Zomato being an example, are doing that, that taking that mobile frame and just expanding it, as long as it fits and does the same thing that's supposed to do. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, I have a question. So with new phones coming out with bigger RAMs, bigger memory, bigger processing speeds, how much optimization of an app, how important has it become?
How much optimization, sorry?
Like, how important has optimization become in terms of, when you're developing an app? Optimization for the phone that you're going to be, say suppose, the new iOS 6 has come out with a new processor, right?
Right.
So with the new Android Lollipop, right? So
Correct.
what I'm asking is like, what are the, first and foremost, like, optimization would be important at that point of time, right? So the app should be working quickly, at a faster rate.
Right.
So what are the steps that you're taking, and how important is it?
Yeah, it's like similar connectivity example, right? It's the holy grail. I mean, if your app is not going to work across different versions, it's not going to work. That said, fortunately, what we've seen is, at least see iOS, Android, it depends, but fortunately what we've seen is that most users tend to use the latest versions of the OSs, right? So as long as they're using the latest version, as long as 95% of the audience is above a certain version, it's not that bad. As long as we optimize for those versions, we are okay. The problem, or rather the challenge now we're increasingly facing is the different devices and the different screen sizes. We used to think that was a challenge only on Android, but something happened on Apple this year, which means that now we have that same challenge over there as well. No, so increasingly development has become harder, testing has become harder, development cycles have become longer. That said, now the opportunity for platform players or companies to optimize that for app developers like us has become bigger. So now there are companies out there who are specifically saying that, hey, look, you build your app, we'll optimize it for different devices, different phones, different OSs. So I think there's enough resources available out there where, which you could leverage, but that's an ongoing challenge and very important to address.
Akrit, you are a great sport. You didn't even speak about haptic, okay? And I suggest you give a 30-second pitch on the
Oh yeah, great. So Haptic basically is an app that allows you to get help about products and services over messaging. So think about any standard messaging app, but instead of talking to friends and family, you're talking to experts for any help you might need across 13 categories of products that are automobiles, banking, telecom, airlines, insurance. That's the 5 I can remember right now, but 8 other categories. So iOS, Android, haptic.co/download. Download it, please, and use it. Ask a very difficult question. That's a challenge for us to solve.
Thanks
Thank
a lot,
you.
Akrit. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.